This is our app, and you're listening to Country Lunch on WOOL 91.5 FM from Bellows Falls, Vermont. Let's get back with our March 4th interview. Paleo Mountain Man and Harry Hubbard from Illinois Caves.com.
And it was there, and you could measure it, and they measured it to put it there. And they had geometry. The walls I look at, it took a long time to figure it out. I thought they were just randomly stacked stones, but you can put lines through the stacks, and they're all geometrical lines, and they come out to shapes and spirals, triangles. The people who built them had geometry on their mind. I don't know if they were like us. Maybe they just thought geometrically. Maybe they had that in their brain because they really did a good job building these walls. They haven't fallen down in all these thousands of years. They put serpent imagery in them. They put spirals in them, like
Yeah.
they put constellations in them, and even the sacred geometry built into the walls tells a story of who they were. And I find a lot of artifacts with their images carved into them. And I'm an artist, and I've done a lot of portrait painting, a lot of it. And when I get involved in some of the artifacts with images on them, and I start looking at them as an artist, it's almost supernatural the way they put images into quartz. I don't know how they could have done it, because every little nuance in a face and in an expression is there, down to the pupils of the eyes.
Quartz is a very difficult mineral to work with, too. I mean,
well, if you look at the stuff I put on my channel, that's all quartz, and I don't manipulate it. I just put the outlines in a little bit, and just to enhance the image, and to make it easier to see. And then once you see it, you see the original stone, the image jumps right out at you. And who could do this? I mean, what kind of technology could create quartz images like that?
Several of the stone sites that I witnessed in Connecticut a few years ago, it's like 40 feet by 40 feet, perfectly square, tied in with other size rooms, perfectly square. They may they use the walls from one room to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and there's no opening. There's no way. It can't be for livestock or so unless you pick the animal up and put it in there. And how in the world would they go from one room to the next unless they were giants or they had big feet or long legs to step over the 3-foot or 4-foot wall without needing a passageway? I mean, just hundreds of rooms that are out there in the middle of the forest. A lot of it's undergrowth with trees, and in the ground, embedded in the dirt itself. Even now, there are still plenty of those stones. Where did they pull the stones from? Now, in certain places like out west, you can say, okay, well, we're on top of this mesa. The stones come from right there. Here's the building here. Well, it's just a head scratcher in New England of how they logistically move the stones, how they mine them, pull them up out of the dirt. And then Salvatore Trento, he's trying to figure out how many man hours, how many hours of labor it took to build the walls. And then you start dividing that by or factoring in the days of the year that are too hot to work, or is pouring down rain, or freezing rain, or ice, or snow, or just too cold. And I just can't imagine what these people were thinking. Hey, man, yeah, the thunderstorms just passed. It's a little muddy outside. Hey, let's go build a wall. Let's go work on the wall some.
That's what they did. They did that. They built them. They
got
them done.
Must have.
They created them, and they got them built. I mean, through all that, through all the bad weather and whatever, the wild animals and the warring tribes or whatever, they got these magical walls built all over the country.
And it would have had to be
New England,
generation after generation after generation. And
maybe,
for what purpose? We still can't figure it out today.
Who knows? Who knows how long it took to build just one example of a north-south, straight-aligned astronomically intended wall that's, say, 4 feet high average, 3 feet wide, laying on not on dirt, but on bedrock. So you had to for several hundred feet bare the bedrock clear, and then find all the stones. That's a big example of, how did they do that? How did they get all these stones?
And then clearing the trees. They would have had to clear the trees and the roots of the trees that were embedded in the stone itself.
And that too. And getting the roots out. And we're talking about a project, and you don't do that in your spare time. And you don't do it in a summer. And you don't do it in the winter. Like you're saying, when do you do it? How did they do it? A lot of questions.
You wouldn't do it at night either.
Or at night. Yeah, true. Or when you were eating and when you were sleeping. And, how many man hours would it take for, even if you were a giant, let's say you were 8 feet tall, it would still take the same amount of hours. You could lift the stones a little easier, but you had to go collect them, you had to find them, you had to dig them out of the ground, you had to move the trees, you had to create the tools to cut the trees down. You had to feed everybody.
To eat. Somebody's got to bring them food or cook food or not. They got to drink. They have to. Now, another thing is logistically using the bathroom. If you're building a wall and you have to go number 1 or number 2, you're not going to do it right there where you're working. You're going to walk maybe 100 feet over somewhere to do your business and then come back. Well, how many people would have to walk 100 feet or so to do their business and then come back? Well, what about all the sewage and and the piles of feces, the rivers of urine? How in the world would you do that until the next rain would wash it downstream or whatever?
Here's the way to think about it.
You don't use the bathroom generally right there where you're working.
Here's
so if they're in the middle of a matrix, they would have had to climb over 3, 4, 5 walls just to take a whiz.
Here's a way to think about it. It's a place that people came generation after generation. It's a sacred place, these places. Like a temple, people keep coming still. And a single boulder megalith, people come still, even though it's been there thousands of years. Like Stonehenge, that's a complicated one, but it draws people. And the same thing with these walls. And people would come to these walls, and I think sects of people, cults of people lived there over time. They did a lot of carving in stone, and I think people that lived there had a supernatural knowledge of a sacred geometry, and they weren't us. They were not us, because we don't walk around and think geometry. We don't build things so geometrically thought about, and we don't watch the stars, and we don't do those things. They were doing things we don't do. We take for granted. And we let everyone else do the hard work, and we can, look it up on Google. Pretty much. But they were building walls so they could discover what the stars were doing, and they put stories in the walls, and they built them, and they're still standing, which is incredible.
From what I've seen in Connecticut, you have a matrix after matrix of walls, just incredible networking. And it just does not appear to me that anyone could have lived there because, like I say, to defecate, you'd have had to climb over several walls just to get to a plate, to get out of there. And unless there was some way to do your business inside your wall, but it doesn't appear to be habitable at all. I mean, there's just no way to go from one to the and
a lot of ridges, a lot of rocks, a lot of gullies. And you can break your leg, you can break your arm, you can break your finger building walls. That's another thing.
You can smash your toes.
Yeah, you don't build walls because just for the heck of it, because you don't do it to clear your fields either, because you'll break your finger, you break your arm, you'll hurt your shoulder, and then you can't feed yourself. Farmers
but how
didn't
did
do
they
that.
pry them up out of the ground, pick them up, and then carry them, and then set them, fit them in place? Like you say, there's so many of them just look fitted. I mean, perfectly fitted.
Maybe they had tamed mammoth, things like that, mastodon.
Well, a huge beast would not be able to navigate inside the matrix.
I'm just throwing that out, and I agree. They wouldn't use. I guess they wouldn't use a beast to carry the stone to the top of the ridge either to build their walls, because that's where they built them.
If you see like a huge matrix, that matrix would have had to have started in the center, I would suppose, and then the wall come up gradually so that you could actually navigate through the walls themselves to build them up. And you're carrying a 40-pound rock, and you're having to step over 2-foot wide walls that are 2 feet high, and to get to where you're going to put that rock.
There had to be a reason. There had to be.
A good
reason.
There had to be some reason that we do not understand. I've been scratching my head with stone walls for decades, and holy smokes, it's just
in New England,
just one
a lot of the
question
stone
after another.
A lot of the stone is quartz. A lot of quartz in it in New England, and a lot of the walls I see have quartz every so many feet or so many yards placed in it.
The ones I've seen in Connecticut were more, and down in Georgia and in other places, was like a dark black rock. Some of it was rounded, some of it's rough. It's just all over the place. And I even saw walls that were constructed, and the rocks themselves were the size of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah, at least.
Huge.
A lot heavier.
Huge stones fitted together.
I've seen dolmens that are shaped like a Tic Tac. A lot of them, they're shaped like that. It's sort of the perfect balanced egg-shaped stone.
How did they shape that stuff?
But they put them on top of a 12-foot wall.
Yeah, let's spend 10 years rounding this.
And then put it on top of a 12-foot wall.
And now let's put it up on these 3 other stones. Let's put all 3 stones together and then put this big stone on top of it.
There's a definite reason for that, I would say. I would say there's a really good reason they did that. And we're all asking why. And I think a lot of it has to do with the quartz that's in the rocks and the way they viewed the world and the way they dealt with the world. And
quite possibly, but they couldn't have been fire breaks. Certainly, it would have just. A deer can hop over the walls. Smaller animals like raccoons, they can climb over these walls. But I just don't see them being any type of barrier for wildlife at all.
No, and a lot of them are. There's no openings in them either.
Yeah, that's another thing. But anyway, I did the video. It's called Browning Hill, North America's most spectacular megalithic ruin.
Can you tell us where to find the video?
If you just YouTube search Harry Hubbard or Illinois Caves, I've got dozens and dozens of videos on ancient artifacts that we found here in Illinois. Lots of decipherments, lots of technical stuff, and I'm all over the place. I do other things also, but that one is called North America's Most Spectacular Ruins.
Okay.
I believe, and it is on. You have to scroll down. It's been out for several years, and I just found some old footage on VHS. I was going through one of my totes, and I found this video. I said, well, hey, I might could make a video on that. But I checked on YouTube first, and nobody had documented it. No one. There's been 2 people that had like 2-minute videos on Browning Hill in Indiana. And I said, here, I've got it like, over half an hour worth of material. I said, I'm going to put it all together and put it online. And I did. And I found all my, I said, I think I've got some files here somewhere on it. And I did. I found some documentation, put it all together, put it out there. And it is just amazing. And there's a lot of noise in the video. I mean, I shot it in 1995, transferred it from VHS to DVD, and then pulled it off again or whatever. I can't remember exactly everything I did, but it's pretty fantastic. And how these people move these huge stones, how they arranged them, how they're cut. Because even in New England, a lot of the stones appear to be hand-hewn.
Oh, okay. We're going to cut it short here. It's been half an hour, and I'm going to take a break here, an ID and things like that. If you want, you can stay on the line or call us back next week. Budcat7 probably wants to weigh in here. I figured you guys would have hooked up a conferencing thing to get in.
Neither one of us have that technology available.
I think it's a double click on it works on a landline, maybe a cell phone too. Have to look it up on the internet. But anyway, if someone wanted to contact you, and talk to you about different things or get some information. Like, do you have an email address or Facebook?
Oh, sure. You can go to illinoiscaves.com, and my contact is there. Or you can just Google Harry Hubbard contact, and my bio comes up with email address. I'm not too hard to find, and I'm not a good Facebooker, but Harry Hubbard on Facebook or Illinois Caves on Facebook, either one. Yeah, I'm not hard to find.
Great. That makes it easy. That way the listeners will know where to go and ask questions.
Hey, thank you.
Sure. And you're welcome to come back anytime.
Hey, my pleasure. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Harry.
Yeah, you have a good day.
You guys have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.